is this custom connectors, they are nothing but kind of an wrapper around the APIs that you have got. So yeah, to build these custom connectors, you will need some kind of an pro code skills. But to use that, you can be just a low code, no code developer, and then you should be able to use it. So all those are available here. Probably I'm going to show that during my demo as well. But once you
Sure.
go to the connectors, here you should be able to see all of those connectors which are available to built customly by the community and available here. Only thing is like all these are under the premium category, but at least this will give you flexibility to connect to various services, which probably not possible when you are when you want to do something customizedly, right? But yeah, to develop those, you will need at least
Pro code. Yeah,
pro code.
sure.
Yeah.
Sure. So again, stage
Yep.
is all yours, and then you can. I just keep quiet, and then we lead to all the people who are attending session. You can raise questions and all, and towards the end, both the experts, Nanddeep and Smita, they will answer your questions. So again, Nanddeep, Smita, stage is all yours now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank
Thank you very
you.
much for the introduction. And hello all, welcome to Global Power Platform Bootcamp, which is being organized by Delhi Power BI User Group. And we are here to showcase the demonstration about how to build the custom connectors for Power Platform. So even though, let's say, for example, if you are not a pro code, don't worry, we are not going to go into the complex code because myself, I don't know how to do the complex coding. Okay, so we'll keep it very simple but effective. That how, for example, if you have got any code which is running onto any of the API and you want to consume those kind of functionalities through Power Platform, how you are going to do that by building your own custom connector, right? And again, if you want, even you can make it available for the entire community for their benefit. So even during this demo, we are going to demonstrate one of such connectors that me and Smita have built together, which is for Sessionize. Okay, so that is all that we are going to cover in this 1 hour. But before that, this global power platform is happening across all of the global locations, which is being joined by almost 78 locations across the globe. Delhi is one of that, and then again, we are also organizing one at Pune in person tomorrow. So if you are in Pune or around, feel free to join us there as well. But again, based on your location, find out the place where this global power platform is happening and try to attend those, because there you will get to see lot many other low code, pro code, no code developers like you, other or else even the speakers will be speaking around um, various kind of topics during this event. All right, so just to give you some more information about this, you can socialize, interact, and communicate with all of those GPBB handlers. So here is the YouTube channel, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn account for them. So if you want to get more information about the events happening or more information from GPBB, these are few of the good social media channels through which you will be able to connect with them. All right. So then even another thing which is coming out of JPPB is that fill out this survey and you still hold a chance to win some cool swags for you. Okay. So there is a link that is being shown here, or else even you can use this scanner code or QR code to scan and then participate yourself into that swag competition. All right. Okay. So without further delay, let's quickly get started with the session. Myself, Nanddeep Nachan, I'm Microsoft MVP for M365 apps and services. I mostly worked on Microsoft 365 related apps and services, Power Platform, Microsoft Azure, as well as I'm Microsoft certified trainer. And then this is another badge that I have got here, which you can see on the screen. I will be explaining in um, bit depth onto it when we will come to the later part of the session. But this one is some kind of an PNP independent publisher badge that you will get when you are creating your own custom connectors and making it available for the entire community. Apart from that, I'm author of 3 books on SharePoint as well as Microsoft Viva Connection. So if you are interested to read out, here are those books. And then onto the right hand side, here are few of the social media handlers through which you will be able to get in touch with me. And with me today, we have Smita.
Hello, all. Myself Smita Nachan. I am from Pune, India. I am M365 consultant, having total 14 plus years of experience. I am a speaker as well as author of these 2 books, which are published with A Press for last more than 2 years, I'm a Microsoft MVP for MC65 development category. Apart from that, I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. And as Nanddeep mentioned over here, yes, I'm also independent publisher. We will explain more details in our session. And these are some of my social handlers by which you can get in touch with me.
All right, so with that, let's start with what we are going to cover in this session. So the agenda for this session is like we will have an overview of what is mean by custom connector, how we can go ahead and consume any of the API as a custom connector, how we can go ahead and create those custom connectors. And again, for example, if you have your code, so it could be a legacy code or it could be a newly developed code, which act as an Azure API, how that can be converted to a custom connector. And then lastly, we are going to demonstrate one of the custom connector that we have built for Sessionize, which will help you to even arrange your events better. All right, so let us start with custom connectors overview. So simply like what is meant by custom connector is the connector is something like a proxy or kind of a wrapper around the APIs, which allows Power Automate, Power Apps, as well as even Logic Apps in Microsoft Azure to communicate with the underlying service that you have developed or any of the other party has exposed. So this connector help make very much easier for the apps and flow makers like us to connect to other apps, data, and the devices in the cloud. So this is a simple definition of the custom connector. So next thing is now that we need to identify like when there is a need to create a custom connector. So let's say for example, if you are just building some app or flow which is consuming data from SharePoint, OneDrive or SQL Server, we do have all those connectors available with us. So at least Power Platform gives more than 250 plus kind of an connectors which we have readily available. But what about the APIs that we build for our organization, or maybe there are some other data which is lying outside of the Microsoft system, or maybe for which the connectors are not available in Power Platform. So in that cases, what we can simply do is that we can build the logic around those APIs available, which is at the core of everything. We can build that connector and then simply we can go ahead and use those connectors in Power Automate, Power Apps, as well as Logic Apps. So this entire process has been split it into four major steps. So first one is we just need to identify like is there a need to go ahead and create a custom connector, or can we use any of the existing connector to go ahead connect to our system or service, get the data from there. Okay, so that is the major thing that we have got. We are going to even deep dive into that. And then again, next thing, for example, if there is a need to go ahead and create your own custom connector, then how we'll be able to describe all of those APIs that we want to expose through our connector. And then once we are done with that, we need to go ahead, use that connector. And then lastly, the optional step is that if you have the connector, why not make it available for everyone as an open source? And then everyone will be able to use that directly. All right. So let us go into these four steps in detail.
So let's see how we can just define the connector. So the first one is you have to identify or build the API. So your first task is to check the connector reference to determine if the suitable connector already exists for this API or service. And if a suitable connector does not already exist, then you can make your own custom connector. Then you have to describe the API. So for the Power Apps and Power Automate to discover what triggers and actions are available from the API, you must identify them when you create your custom connectors. The third thing is you have to use your connector. So after custom connectors are created in an environment, they can be used in the same ways as built-in connectors. They can be built in one environment, exported, and can be used in other environments also. Then the last one is to certify and share the connector as an open source. So because the custom connectors are only available in the environments where their definition exists, so they are not available to other Microsoft customers. So by sharing a custom connector definition as an open source, you make it available on GitHub for other customers to import into their environments. So certifying a connector requires that you own the API or have explicit permission to publish a connector from the API owner.
All right, so now that we know a basic theory of what is meant by custom connector, when to go for the custom connectors, now let us see like from where we'll be able to create those or from where we'll be able to access those. So for that, I will quickly go into my Power Automate environment. So this is the Power Automate window. If you just browse to make.powerautomate.com, you'll be taken to this page. And then all of the connectors that we use to get the data to the flow or to the apps, you will be able to see it here. So these are all the connectors which are available here are these out of the box connectors. At the same time, for example, if you go under data and then look out for this option called as custom connectors. So all of the custom connectors that you have built in this environment, or at least you're consuming from anywhere else, they will be shown at this point, right? So once you open up the Power Automate, browse to the data and custom connectors, and this is a place from where you will be able to go ahead and then create or define your custom connector. So like then what is needed to define your custom connector? Okay, so once I click on this new custom connector, we have got various options here. First thing is create from blank. Then we have got option for Azure service. Even we can use any of the open API file, that means a Swagger kind of a file. Even we can create a Postman collection. For example, if your APIs are complex, and in that case, there may be a set of APIs that you want to expose as an connector. In that case, you can go ahead, create the Postman collection, and then you will be able to use that. And the last option is very much interesting. If you just click on this import from GitHub, and there is a link which will take you to the open source repository. Okay, I should have opened that in the new window. Just give me one moment. So it is the place wherein you will be able to see all of the custom connectors which are built for the community. And even if you want to go to the code of that, you will be able to see it here. So all of the custom connector as well as the independent publisher connectors, they are available here. So if you want to directly go ahead, consume any one of that, we will be able to go ahead and use that. But let us quickly see like what is the significance of each of those and then how those can be created.
So let's take the first one, that is a create from blank, define the connector. So when using this approach, you would use the API documentation and example of inputs and outputs and then define each action and trigger. So this approach is a good for simple APIs where you don't have the ability to import the definition. So you can also use this approach to refine the definitions after you import them. Second one is the export from Azure. So if your API is built as an Azure app service, Microsoft Azure Functions, or is managed by Microsoft Azure API management, you can export from those services and it will automatically create the initial custom connector definition. The third one is import open API definition. So Open API is a specification that describes the REST, so simplifying the task of developing and consuming an API by effectively mapping all the resources and operations that are associated with it. And the many services API publish an open API definitions, and you can import it to describe the API in the custom connectors. So the importing version 2.0 is supported, but the version 3.0 is not currently supported. And this approach is beneficial if an open API definition is available from the API publisher, or if you are developing the API, you can publish the one. The last one is the import Postman collection. So the Postman is a tool for testing the REST APIs. So you can use this tool to perform the actions on the API that you want to describe and then save them as a Postman collection. So this collection is then imported to describe the API in the custom connector. And currently you can use this approach with V1 collections.
Okay, so let us see like how we'll be able to build out the custom connector from blank. So let's say you want to start from a blank canvas. Probably you don't have the open API file, or you don't have the Postman collection. In that case, you can simply go ahead with import from blank. You can just name your connector. So I will just call it as a connector one. Okay, good name. So I can just click on continue. So once you do that, this is the place wherein you will be able to define your entire collection, sorry, entire collector. So first thing is that, for example, if you want to give some icon to your connector, in that case you will be able to upload that icon. It could be a PNG or JPG file which should be less than 1 MB, so that it can act as an icon. So let's say, for example, if you're building custom connectors for your organization, probably you can have the organization logo here, so that it will give some kind of an authenticated feeling to the users while they will see all those custom connectors in their list. The second thing is always preferable that you can go ahead and use the PNG kind of an icons, so that they will provide you the transparent background, and then you can have the background color specified here, so that whenever that transparent image will be on top of the background color that you have specified, it will give some nice look and feel to your users. Another important thing here, which is not a required field, but still gives more meaning when you are defining your custom connector, is the description. Because let's say we, even though we name our custom connector, there might be some confusions in the users who are going to use this connector, like what does this connector exactly do. So in that case, if you specify good amount of description here, detailed description here, so that there won't be miss, at least all of the queries from your users who are trying to use or consume that custom connector will be answered, will be a good win for you. The other thing that we have got here is this on-premises data gateway. So let's say, for example, you want to consume your data from the on-premises systems or services that you have got running. In that case, you can go ahead with those on-premises data gateway. You need to install that on-premises data gateway, and then checking this box will help you to connect to your on-premises data as well. The other thing that we have got here is the scheme, like do you want to expose all of the HTTPS APIs that you have got built, or just the HTTP APIs? So decide like how your APIs are being developed, or at least how those have been deployed, or how what kind of an APIs that you want to go ahead and consume. So you can define that as an host. Okay. So probably I will just type it here as api.contoso.com, and then base URL is like, for example, whenever we are creating any kind of an APIs, mostly Azure architects, they want to have some APIs sitting behind a certain URL path, so that they will be able to secure the access to that path. So for example, if it is a case, you will be able to specify that as a base URL here. So let's say, for example, api.contoso.com/API, or maybe some kind of an other base URL that you have got. So this is the basic things that those will be needed when you want to go ahead and create your connector. So now that we just have given the basic information about what is the name of the custom connector, and then what is the host that it is going to consume. But whenever we go for creation of the custom connector, the major thing here is the authentication, like how we are going to authenticate against the API which is running behind this custom connector. So there we have got multiple options. No authentication, that means we don't need any kind of an authentication. Directly anyone on the in this world will be able to hit that API endpoint and able to consume that. Then we have a basic authentication, which means just the username, password, and we'll be able to get authenticated. Or we can just use any kind of an API key through which we'll be able to get authenticated ourselves, or we can use any kind of an OAuth 2.0, which is the industry standard protocol for any kind of an authentication. But maybe let's spend some time discussing about what is the significance of each of these authentication type.
So the custom connector architect supports working with authenticated API. So when you define the custom connector, you will identify how it should authenticate to the API, and the authentication choices support the anonymous, password protected, OAuth 2.0, and API key access. So let's see one by one them. So no authentication, that means This choice is for the APIs that allow anonymous access, and it is the default. So if you don't configure a specific authentication type, the second one is the basic authentication. So this choice is for the APIs that require a user and password to be sent with each request. The third one is the API key. So an API key is a token that a client provides when making API calls. The API publisher typically provides the key and it must be included in each request from the custom connector. The last one is OAuth 2.0. So the OAuth 2.0 is the industry standard protocol for authorization. So this option can be configured for any API that uses OAuth 2.0, and the pre-built configurations are available for you to select from for Microsoft services like Azure Active Directory, Azure AD, GitHub, and Azure DevOps. So similar pre-built configurations are available for other services like Dropbox, Slack, Stream, and more. The pre-built configurations simplify what you need to provide to configure the identity provider.
All right, so with that, let's go into another demo and see how we'll be able to at least create a custom connector. So in this demo, I will assume that most of us are low code, no code kind of developers. And there is someone who is a pro code developer who has helped you to create the API at your organization, or maybe if you are working with a vendor and that vendor has given you some kind of an API. Now that it is your role as a pro code or no code kind of an developer to go ahead, define a connector around that API which is exposed by your organization or by your vendor, and then you will be able to use that in Power Apps or Power Automate. All right. So with that, what I will do is I will just discard this part, and then we will start from the clean slate. Okay. So we know that if you want to go ahead, create a new custom connector, this is the place from where we'll be able to start, and then go ahead and create the connector like blank from open API file, that is Swagger or Postman collection. So for this demonstration, I have got one website which is available directly from Microsoft, which is contosoinvoicing.azurewebsites.net. So this one is just the API which is built on top of Azure. Even from this hosting, you can see that this one is pointing to azurewebsites.net, and which is for the invoicing kind of an platform built by Contoso. So let's say, for example, Contoso is your organization or maybe your partner organization, and you want to consume all those APIs from there. So to create the good looking APIs, what are the three things needed? First thing is the API documentation, which is available here, which will give us this kind of an documentation about what are the API endpoints available, which we will be able to consume when we want to get the data from other systems or services like this into the Power Apps or Power Automate, or maybe into the entire Power Platform. So this is one example of how the good looking documentation looks. So let's say, for example, we have various operations available here like add invoice, get invoice, and list invoice, and many more. So what as a low code or no code developer we can do is we can just look into this, like what are the expected input parameters, what is the expected body for this, and then once we will send out the response, what kind of an sorry, whenever we'll send out the request, what kind of a response that we are going to get. So in this case, we will probably start with the very basic one, list, which is a get kind of a thing. So let's say we want to just test it out, what kind of an invoices it is going to send to us. So from by looking at this definition, you can see that we do have I just click on try it out. So you can see that we do have some kind of an input parameter specified here, but all of those are optional. So even without specifying those, we can go ahead, list out all the invoices without applying any kind of an filtering here. So I'll just go ahead, click on execute. And then from here, you can see that, okay, we are not authorized. So that means this one is expecting some kind of an authentication. Since we have not yet authenticated, it is not going to help us to get the data from there. So in that case, what we can do is we can just quickly go ahead and try to authorize. So this one is the API key based authentication. So let's say again, if I go here, this is that API key kind of an authentication, right? So what we can do now is that this documentation provide us another API key. So I will just copy this API key from here, go back to the Swagger one more time, and then click authorize. So now that we have the API authentication done, now that I will go back and try to execute this one more time. And okay, still unauthorized. Let me just authorize it one more time and do it another time. Okay, all right. So still, okay, now that you can see that this one is giving us the success, and then these are all of the invoices that we get. Okay, so this API does need at least API key to get authenticated. All of the documentation that we have got here. Again, I will show you like how to generate this kind of a documentation for the APIs that you are customly building for your organization or for the customers. And then again, this is the open API definition file. Okay, so this is the Swagger file which is running behind this entire Swagger. So this is the entire JSON kind of an format. Again, you will be able to point it out that all of the APIs that we are going to call out are being listed here. So let's, for example, get invoice schema. Then what kind of a request it is, get, what are the expected parameters here, what is the expected response, and then everything like what is the input parameter, what is the output things, and all those things. So, but only thing is this one is in JSON format. So now that we want to probably go ahead and consume this API as a custom connector in our organization. So how to do that? So what we will do is, in this case, to start with, I will just save this entire file as a JSON file. So let me just click there and let me just save this here as swagger.json. So I just have downloaded this Swagger definition as a JSON file onto my desktop. So the next thing is we need to go ahead and create the connector on top of it. So I will keep this window onto the extreme left because this is the API key that we'll have to use throughout our course here. All right. So in this case, what we can do is that we don't need to start from blank because we already have a definition with us, this Swagger file. So I will just click import and open API file, which is this Swagger file, which is the JSON file. And here we need to name our connector. So I will just call it as a Contoso invoicing. Yeah, let it be Contoso invoicing. And then I will import this file swagger.json from my desktop here, and I will click on continue. Right. So now as soon as I do that, here you will be able to see that all of the things that it should have done is here. In the host, that what we need to do here is that we need to go ahead and specify the host as contosoinvoicing.azurewebsite.net, or at least anything, for example, wherever uh, wherever your API is being hosted. So for that reason, let me just copy this Contoso invoicing. Let me go back here and point it out. Okay, and this API is running onto the HTTPS. So we will be selecting the scheme as HTTPS. We'll go for the security part. Here you can see that from the API definition file, from the Swagger file itself, it has taken that as an API key. Okay, because we have got other authentication options as well, but by looking at the Swagger JSON, the Swagger file, it has identified this one is using the authentication type as API key. All right, so that's it. So now that we will go into the definition, and here you will see that all of the APIs that we have seen here, for example, add invoices, list invoices, get invoice, all those APIs are available here, so that we'll be able to browse through them, as well as, for example, if you want to go ahead and modify any of those, even it is possible. So let's say, for example, if you want to modify any one of those, what we can do is here we do have a few kind of a thing like definition, like how we want to call out this API in our or in our organization. Let's say, for example, if you want to change this summary or description or even the operation ID, even you will be able to do that. And whenever we will create the definition, in that case, we do have few options as well. So let's say, for example, this is the query parameter that is being passed onto the this API, which is add invoice. So I can just click on this, click on edit, and here you can see that we have got again visibility kind of an options. So we do have visibility of none, advanced, internal, and important. So none, that means this option is the default one, and this action will display normally all of the query parameters that you have got. For example, if you go ahead with advanced, this action will be available, but it will not be prioritized. For example, if you go with the internal option for this, then this action will be hidden because it is internal, used for the internal purpose. Let's say, for example, whenever you deal with any of the object in .NET, there are few of the properties that you keep it as an internal for the internal processing, which you do not expose to the outside world. So if you keep this option as an internal, this one will be used just for the internal purpose. And then, for example, if you keep the visibility as important, that means this action will be prioritized and this one will be shown as the first. So let's say, for example, if you want to have prioritization for any of the query parameter, you can go ahead and do that. Again, for example, if you want to keep adding more and more parameters, you will be able to do that one as well. And again, here is the response validation, all those things are here. Let's say, for example, if you want to go ahead and use this kind of a thing into code as well. So for example, if you are using .NET code, anything else, in that case, you will be also able to use this code from here directly by making a HTTP request to that particular endpoint. But in our case, we'll keep it very simple. We will not go with those complications. All right. So now that, let us go into the test. Okay, so before we test, we need to save this connector, which we can do by clicking this create connector. So we'll just click on create connector, and then we should be able to go ahead and test out this connector, right? So let you take the time. All right. So once it will save the custom connector, what we'll be do is we should be able to call any of the API which is being exposed under this connector, and then we'll be able to use that. Okay, so next thing, we know that in order to go ahead use this connector, we need some kind of an authentication, and then that authentication is nothing but just the API key. So for that, what we need to do is we just need to create a new connection. So when you will click on new connection, it will open up in a new window. Again, by looking at this Swagger file or your custom connector definition, it can identify that it needs a API key. So what we'll do is I will just again take that API key that we have got from our documentation from your customer or from the vendor, which is Contoso invoicing, and then we'll just simply go ahead and click create create the connection. All right. So once it is done, simply I will click on this refresh connection, and yeah, this is the connection that we have got. Okay, so this one is this one doesn't refresh itself, so you'll have to just click on refresh connection, and then you'll be able to see that connection being listed here. Again, for example, if you want to build another connection, you can click on that, and then at least based on the creation date time of that, it will show that. uh, Again, another thing is like when it is a connection, you should be able to go back to the connections tab here, and then if you want, you can rename that as well. All right, so now that we have the connection, let's say we want to test this out before we go ahead and start consuming this in Power Apps and Power Automate, because now that you are acting some kind of an admin here, who is going to expose this entire custom connector to your organization. So always it is good that before you roll it out to your users who can consume the Power Apps or Power Automate, go ahead and test it out. So this is the place where we'll be able to test out. So again, we are going to hit the same endpoint list inverses that we had hit from here. So what we'll do simply from here is that I will go to list inverses, all of the operations here. I will not put anything for these optional parameters. I will just click on test operation. If everything goes well, we have got status as 200, which is success. These were the headers that were being passed to that API, and then this is the response that we have received here for the list inverses. So these are all of the inverses that we can see here. All right, but good thing is that we have our custom connector working, and now that we are ready to use this custom connector in our Power Automate or Power Apps as well as in the Logic apps. Okay, so let us give it some time to save the connectors along with the connection that we have got. And now that what we can do is let us try to create some simple flow and then try to see how it works for that custom connector. So for that, I will just go into this create. I will click the instant cloud flow because I just want to trigger that manually. And I will just probably, I will skip this and I will name that flow here. Okay, let it load. Okay, so in the untitled, instead of untitled, I will just call it as a Contoso invoicing. And this is a place from where we should be able to go ahead and start creating our flow. I will just keep it manually triggering flow. We don't want to pass on any input, because through this flow, what we want to achieve is all of the invoices that we have got in our system from Contoso. We just want to email them to certain set of people. Okay, so we will try to build that use case. So this one is a manually triggering flow. Now, obviously, when you will do it for your own organization, that one will be a recurring kind of a flow which can send these invoices maybe on a Friday or any kind of a schedule basis. But just to keep it simple, I'm just making it as a manually trigger flow. I will click on new action, and once you will go into this custom, you should be able to see your flow, sorry, your connector that you have built just now. So this is the custom connector that we had built, which is available here under the custom tab. And then from here, we'll be able to use all of the actions which are available under this connector. So let's say we have all those, but will go ahead with list invoices. And just to note here, everything being denoted here as a premium. Okay, so all of the connectors that you will build, they will be the premium connectors. All right, so this is the list invoices we have got. For example, if you want to pass on any of the from date, to date, status, amount, all those things, you will be able to do that. But we will still keep it simple. What we want now is that after running this flow, we will get the list of invoices. Simply, we want to send this as an email notification to someone, someone in your organization. So for that, what we'll do before we compose that email box, we just simply go ahead and create some kind of an HTML table formatting, so that this one will look better before we go ahead and send that. So for that, I will just go ahead and try to find out something with HTML table. Okay, so we have one option here to create a HTML table, so which can accept some kind of a JSON which is coming out of the list invoices. So here, all of the invoices, I know that those are available under invoices. So I can simply go ahead and select that invoices. And then in the new step, I can simply go ahead and then send email. So maybe instead of sending it to someone else, I will just try to send it to myself. So I will just go ahead and select this, send me an email notification. Okay. And then in the subject, I will just type it as Contoso invoicing. And in the body, we can go ahead and take the output from the HTML formatting. And that's it. I will go ahead, save this, and we will run this. Okay, so I'm just praying demo God that this should work well, and then we should be able to see the result coming out of this over the email. All right, so we'll go ahead, run this manually. It is asking me to get myself authenticated against these two connectors, which we will do. We'll click continue, and then we will just run this flow, right? Okay, done. Okay, so let the flow run. Okay, and this is very quick. You can see that we got at least few of the inverses in the output. We can see those inverses. Even I can go into the HTML table, and this is the formatted table that we can see. And obviously, this must have sent me as an email, which you can see as the HTML table formatting that you have got. But just to save the time, probably I will not go into that email, but you will have to trust me that it works. All right. So this is very much simple. Like, let's say, for example, if someone has built the connector for you or the APIs for you, how you will be able to wrap that API as an connector and then expose that custom connector which can be consumed in Power Apps, Power Automate, or even Logic apps. Right. So pretty much simple. Now that let us come to the part of the pro code developers. Again, I will not go into the more coding of Azure side or maybe onto the .NET side. But again, let's say, for example, you have some kind of functionalities in your organization and you want to consume that in your Power Platform, maybe in Power Apps or Power Automate, but you don't know like how to start with that, right? So in that case, what we can do is that we can create those Azure APIs, and then we'll be able to use them. All right, so these custom APIs are just the normal REST-based APIs that can expose some kind of an functionality. So whether you are trying to build some complex logic or connecting to your existing system, you can simply create a REST API in your favorite platform using any language, describe it using Swagger, and then you will be able to use that into a Power Apps. So in this demonstration, we are going to build the REST API using ASP.NET Web API in C Sharp, and that includes some kind of an endpoint. Probably we can call it as a product API, which will return the list of products. And to keep it simple, we will keep those records in kind of a memory. But again, for that, let me go into my developer environment. So this one is the Visual Studio 2019, but even you should be able to do all those magic with Visual Studio 2022, which is the recent edition as well. So once you open up that, you just need to go into the file, new project, and then simply just search out for API. Okay, so from here you'll be able to see all of the API based templates from where you'll be able to go ahead create the project. So you can select either the ASP.NET Web based API or just the .NET Core Web API. Once you create any of the project like that, this is the simple project structure that you will get. So this one is nothing but the API which will help you to write a code through which you will be able to connect to any of the underlying system, get that data, and maybe expose that data to the outside world. Okay, so these are all of the controllers that we have got which will help us to do that. Whenever you will create a basic project, it will have this weather forecast kind of a controller which will just simply give you some kind of a random weather. But now that, let's say for example, if you want to go ahead create your own controller, in that case you can just right click onto the project, go for add new item, and then you will be able to see a controller option here. So either you can go ahead with MVC controller. MVC controller probably is not needed here because we don't have any view part here, because we just want to go ahead and create the normal APIs which can be easily consumed by your end users. So probably we can go ahead with this API controller which is empty, and then once you do that, this is how that controller will look like. So let's say now that I have this product controller, so which is kind of an, I will say, very highly complicatedly coded. Like this one has got product which has got few attributes like ID, name, details, and price. And this is the most complicated code that you must have seen until now, that we are just creating three products like pencil, pen, sharpener, and then we are giving this from our code to the outside world as an API which is running under slash API slash products. Okay, so this is kind of an web-based terminology. Like whenever you have API, so all of the code which is available here that will run will be under the endpoint of API slash the first name just before the controller. So all of the functionality now will be available under the host slash API slash products. Okay, so this is the only thing. Once you have that, at least your code is ready, and then you should be able to go ahead and use that API slash product. So let's say we just go ahead, start out this, and once we go there, by default it will point to that weather forecast that we have got there. But if you just go to slash API slash products, even you should be able to see all of the products that we have defined in our code, right? So these are all of the products that we have defined in our code. So this is the simple web-based API that we can create. So now that, let's say we want to go ahead and expose this API to the outside world, and then which can be consumed in Power Automate, Power Apps, or in Logic Apps. So how we can go about it? So the simple thing is that we should try to create something kind of an swagger, because here you can see that this is a very basic coding that I have done. I haven't written any kind of an documentation, no comments, nothing. So me as a developer, I know that what I have written. But for example, if I come back to this after a months of time, or maybe if I hand over this code to other developer, that they might not have more idea about what I have written. But still that I want to go ahead, create some kind of an quick documentation around that, and then I should be able to package that as an API, so that the low code and no code kind of an developers go ahead and they will be able to consume it. So quickly, how we'll be able to do that, right? So for that we have something kind of an called as in packages, which is for the Swagger. So simply we need to go ahead and add the Swagger support. So to add the Swagger support, what we need is the Open API kind of a specification, which are nothing but set of rules that describes your REST API. Then we need Swagger, which is a set of open source tools built around Open API specifications that we have got. And then lastly, we need Swashbuckle, which is nothing but a NuGet or Nugget, whatever you call it, that NuGet package. So Swagger tools, so it is nothing but the Swagger tool for documenting your .NET APIs. So to do that, what we can do simply is that right click on your project and then go to the manage NuGet packages. And from here, you should be able to search for this swashbuckle.asp.NET Core. This one is the core package created for the ASP.NET core based kind of an project, a swashbuckle. Once you just add this swashbuckle, what magic it can do is simply, now that let's say I will run this again, some kind of an smaller adjustment needs to be done, that you just need to make sure that in the configure there is app.useSwagger, or at least use the endpoint that you want to go ahead and point to that Swagger API. If you just do that basic thing, again, for example, if you are using Visual Studio 2022, these things happen to you out of the box. So I will not go into those complications. But now that what will happen is that, let's say I just run this, and now that we have our API available at this endpoint, but we don't have the Swagger. But as soon as I hit this magic endpoints called as /Swagger, you can see that this one has created all those API documentation as well as all of the APIs that we have got here. So I will focus on these products. So maybe by looking at that code, you can see that I don't have any documentation, nothing there. But still, now that this Swagger has been generated, you can see that this Swagger goes to that code and at least explains like what I'm trying to do that code. So here, no authenticate button. That means we don't have any authentication here. I can simply go and try it out, and then we will be able to see like what is there. Okay, so I can simply click execute, and then all of the products that we have got, we are seeing that those are being written as a JSON format. So nothing especially that I did. So, but this Swagger has generated that kind of a documentation through which I should be able to, or the end user should be able to know that what kind of an expected parameters, what kind of an expected response, and then what that response will look like. Okay, so even if you will use this Swagger, you don't need to create any highly complicated documentation. You can just write good code and then it will take care of everything. All right, so now that we have this everything, how we'll be able to use this as an Azure API, and then use that Azure API as a connector in Power Platform. So for that, what I have done is I have deployed this same code onto ASP.NET web app. So for that purpose, what I will do is I will simply go to the Azure portal. And in this Azure portal, I just have created one resource group inside which I have app service created. So this is my app service. Okay, yeah, this is my app service. And in this app service, I have hosted the entire code which I just have run locally onto this app service. So what I will do is let me just browse to that URL and I can show you that it is the same thing which was running onto the local. So now that as I browse to this, you can see that it is the same thing. Okay, we don't have any UI for the API. That's the reason we don't see anything here. As soon as I hit this /Swagger, you can see that we have the same APIs or endpoints available here, which will be able to go ahead and consume. So basically, now that we have our code running onto the Azure, which is now acting as an API endpoint. Next thing what we are going to do is we are going to use something called as an APIM, or Azure API Management, which is a fully managed service which enables all the organizations to publish, secure, transform, maintain, as well as monitor the APIs, right? So what is mean by that is once you will go ahead and create a new resource in Azure, just search out for API management service, and this is how that resource will look like. So let me just close out the other things, and this is the API management service. So you can just look out for that resource, and then you should be able to create that. So this is the APIM, which will help you to manage all of your APIs in the organization. So once you are here, what you can do is you can just click on APIs. And here again, you get the option like how you want to define those APIs, whether from any of the open API or from any of the logic app or anything else. Oh, I think I also closed out this window where we have the API running. So let me just quickly go back to the app service and uh, take that API URL, which we should be able to consume. All right, so we'll just take that /swagger. So this is the endpoint that we want to go ahead and use. Okay. So this is the Swagger API that we want to consume here. So for that, what I will do is I will just click on this open API, and here we should be able to at least go ahead and specify the specification. All right. So now that I just have clicked that, and then oh, all right. So let me just do it one more time. Okay, looks like it is not working. All right. Oh, right. Because the only thing is like I wasn't giving the entire URL of the Swagger JSON file. My mistake. So I should give the entire Swagger JSON URL here. Okay. All right. So I will go ahead, specify that URL, and then you can see that as soon as I tab over from that, it has automatically populated the display name and name for this by looking at the definition of my Swagger. Okay. And then if you want, you can specify some kind of an API URL. So all of the APIs which are running under this will start running under that API URLs suffix. But I will not do it. Let's go ahead and just click on create. So as soon as we click on create, it will take us to another window wherein we should be able to go ahead and define the settings for that. So here you can see that we do have two APIs, Echo API, which is the weather API that we had got, sorry, just the Echo API, and then we have got product API under which we have got products and weathers. So for this, what I can do now is that I can probably go into this API products, and then from here I can go to the settings, because now that we want to just consume this API from the outside world as an API M. Okay, so only one thing that we need to make sure here is that we have the correct web service URL pointing here, which is our Azure website.net. Once you are happy with that, you can just click on save, and that's it. Now that, uh, okay, let it save. All right. Okay, so now that we need to go ahead and test that. But again, one thing I will quickly do is that I will not have the subscription required. Otherwise, I will have to go ahead and specify the subscription key as well. So just to keep it simple, I will not go into the authentication part of this. I will keep it uh, no authentication mode. Okay, by turning off this subscription required, and I have saved it. So now that we can go into this test, I can just click on this operation, which is API/products, and then simply so this is the URL where it is pointing to. I can just click on send, and if everything goes well, we should be able to see the same response here, right? Okay, so now that we know that we are pretty much happy with this functionality, we want to go ahead and use this into the Power Apps. So for that purpose, what we can do is just click on these three dots next to the API which is defined by you, and just click on create Power Connector, and that's it. Once you do that, it will take you directly to the portal kind of a thing, and you will be able to go ahead and then define that API. So from here we need to select which API we want to expose into the Power Platform. So we will select this product API, that's it. And then what is the display name for this, and which Power Platform environment where you want to go ahead and use that. So I will select the default environment. I will define this as the display name, and I will just go ahead and click on create. So what this will do is this will go ahead and create a custom connector for me into the Power Platform environment, and then we should be also able to go ahead and use that. So let us wait until this just goes ahead and create that custom connector. Probably I will skip the demo to consume it just by looking at the time. But again, this one is just the connector which is available there, which we should be able to go ahead and use. So for that, let me again go back to the custom connectors, and here you can see that this product API is here. Another thing, once you get that API here, it is your duty to go ahead and then test out that connector, right? So do go ahead, test out that connector, and then you should be able to use it the same way that you use the other connectors in Power Apps as well as the Power Automate. Okay. So with that, now what we will do is we'll simply show you the demo of the connector that we had built customly for the Sessionize. Right.
So Synchronize is a smarter way to manage the call for paper, speakers, and agenda for your conference. So this connectors helps to connect with the sessionize to get the conference related information about the speaker, their sessions, and conference agenda. Also, this connector can be used with Power Apps, Power Automate, and the Logic apps. So this connector does not need any authentication. So once the setup is done, this connector supports the actions such as get the list of sessions for your conference and get the list of speaker for your conference. The reason why we have developed this connector is for our own use case. So, as a part of community collaboration, we run a local user group called Pune Tech Community. And as a part of our community initiative, we organize various events across the year. We open a call for speaker, invite the speaker to talk on various diverse topics, build agenda, and then publish the free event for everyone to join. So, couple of things that we have commonly to perform as a part of our event organizing, such as shares the conference agenda to the attendees by email app for conference speakers, which will help the attendees to get the information on speaker and the topics they are presenting at the event.
Custom connector. Right. So this is a custom connector which is available at this URL. Even you will be able to consume that, which is customly built by me and Smita. So do go ahead and try out this custom connector in your environment as well. All right. So this one is about the sessionize. So let's say, for example, now that at Pune Tech Community, we are also organizing another event tomorrow for the Power Platform Bootcamp. So this is the event that we have got published onto the sessionize. One thing that we need to do here is that we just need to go into the go into the schedule. Oh, sorry, go into the edit event, and then only thing that we just need to make sure here is that we are kind of an specifying this particular event. Oh, sorry, we just need to go to the API/embed, and then this is the endpoint through which all of the session as information can be used by the outside world. Only thing here we need to make sure that we are following the JSON format, and that's it. You should be able to go ahead and use this custom connector in your Power Apps, or maybe even in Power Automate. So for that, quickly, what I will do is I will go back to the Power Apps portal.
Nanddeep, the
Yeah,
screen,
sure.
this the blank screen. We can't see the data. The
Oh,
screen, sorry, the
black
slide deck.
screen.
We can't see it.
Sure. All right.
Something happened.
So okay. Let me. Sorry for that. Let me quickly go ahead and start the sharing one more time. All right. Do you see it now?
Now we can see it. Thank you.
Yeah, all right. Okay, yeah. Sorry for that. Okay, so what I will do is I will quickly try to create a Power App with that connector. So we'll click on create. We'll go ahead with the blank canvas app, and then I will just call it as a sessionize here, and then I will click on create. Okay, so what we want to show here is like all of the speakers who are presenting their sessions tomorrow, as well as what kind of a sessions they are going to present. So I just have selected the gallery view here while it got created. So simply what we can do is I can go into the connectors, or maybe from here I can select for the sessionize, and this is the independent publisher connector that you can see available for everyone. I will just go ahead and select that, and that's it. So under the data source, we have this uh, session is selected. Now that what we need to do from here is that for each of the sessionize connector that we have got, we just need to go ahead and this is the sessionize independent publisher. And for the items, I will just go ahead and then do a dot here, and then I will just go ahead and do the get speakers. And then to this, we need to just specify the ID of the sessionizer. So which that ID we should be able to get from here. So this is the ID which I was mentioning about, which has to be exposed as a JSON format, right? So I will go ahead and add that ID here. and that's it. So it should be able to go ahead and get all of the speakers for this. So at least you can see that it has populated everything. So what I will do here is that for the image that we have got, I will just call it as this item dot. We have got picture URL somewhere. Yeah, profile picture. Okay, and then this should bring up the profile picture. So you can see all of the speakers who are speaking tomorrow. This is the another screen wherein we need to show the name of the speaker. So I can just do this item dot maybe full name, and then below that we have another thing. I can click on edit this item dot maybe anything like bio could be, right? And that's it. Now that you can see that our data is coming from the session eyes, and then we should be able to build out this kind of an apps or even flows which will be able to go ahead and pull out that data. Okay, so I will probably skip the other part, but that part was just about showing the sessions onto the right hand side. So as you will click the speaker, all of the corresponding sessions for that speaker will be shown here. But maybe I will keep it optional. I do have one video on that, so watch out my YouTube channel for how we can go about that. But this is the simple app that you should be able to go ahead and quickly do that with the custom connector. All right, so that was about the demo, how to go ahead and use that session as custom connector. So with that, sorry for overrunning, but please fill out this survey and win this swags, or even you can visit this bit.ly/gppb survey. Okay, so the conclusion for this session is that connector is nothing but the proxy or a wrapper around the API, which allows Power Automate, Power Apps, Logic Apps to communicate with the underlying service that you have got. So simply certify and share this connector as an open source for the benefit of everyone. Whenever you are developing any custom APIs, don't forget to add this Swagger support so that you don't need to do the complex kind of an documentation, and it will be easy for the consumers to go ahead and consume your APIs. And for example, if you are looking out for any kind of an opportunity to co-develop, connect with us, and we'll be able to. We will be more than happy to develop any of the custom connector with you. All right. With that, thank you very much for having us, and sorry for overrunning.
Yeah, thank you so
I'm
much.
really amazing session here. You covered both the things. You using the connector, using a Power Platform, and also using the Azure way. It's a very useful. There are a couple of questions which came that I mostly be able to answer because we have to give space to the another speaker. But thanks Nanddeep and Smita. Really amazing session, and we really appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much. I
Thank you
will
so
answer
much.
the questions in the chat window. Please continue with the next session. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Nanddeep.